Thank you very much, Mira, and thank you everyone for joining us in this panel. It's been an exciting day and a hot day, and the best is yet to come. So, my presentation is about Quran.Foundation. Quran.Foundation is a new non-profit organization that's been established in the United States to gather two important projects, one of which goes back a couple of decades, and that is Quran.com. Many of you know Quran.com. I often find that people are not sure that they know it, but when they see it, then they say, oh yes, I actually visit that every day. I use such and such function on this site, or I use the legacy site, or I use the Quranic Arabic corpus. And Quran.Reflect.com is a more recent project over the last few years. So Quran.Foundation is gathering these things together. So this is the website. The website is actually Quran.Foundation. And this reflects those two areas, Quran exploration as represented by our project Quran.com, and reflection community as reflected by Quran Reflect. And then content development is where I am coming in, because some of these projects, Quran.com has been for a long time run by people who are basically engineers, who are specialists in technology, who are designers, and they have this extremely important skill set. But more recently now, there's a recognition of the need to actually lead the way in terms of content and to ensure that whatever is presented on Quran.com is authenticated and trustworthy. So Quran.com enjoys monthly visitors of 2.5 million users from many different countries around the world. So it's an immense responsibility to be serving them with the text of the Quran, with audio, with visual tools, with translations in many different languages, some 60 languages, also with commentaries, tafsir, classical, and now also the community-generated content coming in via Quran Reflect. And I just asked the team for some statistics last night, and I came to know that our number one visitors are in Malaysia, and then the US and UK, then India, Pakistan, and where is Germany? I don't know. So Quran.com, this is just a little snapshot of part of the site. An important aspect that people enjoy for the readership is to be able to access translations and to put them next to each other, to look at commentaries. They can also click on things word by word. They can hear a word recited. They can play different reciters. Many different functionalities. So this is something which can go in, towards so much further development. I put the abridged explanation of the Quran because Dr. Shahi is here, but he's in the other room. This is from Mercator Tafsir in Riyadh. A little bit of the background story of Quran.com. I won't go through all of this, but this is something that was shared with us by the founders. It actually goes back to 1990, where an American businessman was developing a multimedia CD, and in order to promote that CD-ROM, he bought a domain called Quran.com, which would be very hard to do nowadays, but this was in the very early days of the internet. So he acquired Quran.com, and when he passed away in 2006, the responsibility for that site went to his children. So his son Noor Sharbash is one of the main people behind this site. So it went live in this format in 2009, and then further developments and versions came out over the subsequent years. A lot of people continue to use legacy.quran.com because they've kept that available for the old school people, like myself, although I've now switched over to the new site, as I should. V3, the version 3 of Quran.com was released last year, and then this year, finally and formally, there is this merger between Quran.com and Quran Reflect to form Quran.Foundation. So let me speak a little bit about Quran Reflect. This is kind of like the other side or the other direction in terms of content. So on Quran.com, we have things that are done by scholars, by authorities, and which we may refer to classical exegeses. We might translate works of tafsir selectively, curating the materials that people can rely on when it comes to exploring the Quran and exploring its meanings. And then on the other side, we've got what you can call the democratization of Quranic knowledge. And that is to say that since the Quran itself has this exhortation in it to reflect upon it, we are of the point of view that there should be open spaces and fora for people to be able to speak about the Quran. And if that means that we should be able to speak about the Quran in our homes, amongst friends and colleagues, however it may be, also the internet is a space where people can talk about the Quran. And if people can do that on all sorts of social media where people spend a lot of their time and attention nowadays, then it makes sense to have a dedicated platform towards this. So here's just an example, a snapshot of the page yesterday. We clicked on the tab for popular posts, and these are both 4 years ago because they received a lot of likes and comments. But there is every day new posts coming in from around the world in several different languages which are supported on the website. So the tagline that we have for this project is creating a culture of reflection around the Quran. So this is based on the idea and the spirit that the Quran is something which it is legitimate to reflect on, that everybody's got a voice, that there's something to be added. And this is just to show you the kind of experience that a user of Quran Reflect can have. This was actually done a couple of years ago by our main person for Quran Reflect, Amr Abbas. And that was just a snapshot of his phone that day. This is real, and apparently I had mentioned him in a comment, so that came up in the notifications. You can choose how many notifications you want, by the way, you don't have to have all of this. But it means that they can be aware when someone that I follow has posted a reflection, or some public figure, someone likes my reflection, follows me, a group that I'm interested in has posted content, someone mentions in a comment, and so on. So this is social media for the Quran. And it means that there is connection between people all around different verses of the Quran. So this is its current state of growth. We have 36,000 monthly active users in 160 countries or more, and currently 10,000 reflections on the site. Now, as the person who is responsible for quality and guidance on this site, I'm actually trying for it not to grow too much, too fast, because we have a lot of challenges here in how to receive, and how to filter, and how to ensure the accuracy of this content. And to an extent, it is like what often happens when people are teachers, scholars, imams, sheikhs. They will say to people, go ahead and reflect on the Quran, but be careful about sharing your thoughts, because maybe there's something wrong, maybe you misunderstood something, and then you don't want to mislead someone else, right? So they say, okay, but mention it to a sheikh, a teacher, mention it to someone that you trust, and if they tell you that it's okay, then after that you can share it. So how realistic is this process that everybody has access to a scholar directly to go and speak and discuss and maybe fix any gaps in their understanding? So what we're doing with Quran Reflect is creating a space where this can happen. It means that people can post, that they can have their posts reviewed, they can receive some feedback, and then it becomes available to people on the site. Because just as we want it to be a safe space for people to share their reflections, we also want it to be safe for people to feel they can come there and not get confused about their religion, that the content that they find fits within. Basically, the criterion is an evidence-based approach to speaking about the Quran. So if you're going to say something, make sure that you know the basis on which you say it, and that it can be supported with evidence. So I say that just so that you don't understand that it's based on a particular type of orthodoxy or a particular type of policing of beliefs. These are just a couple of comments of some of the users of the site, just to illustrate a couple of points that might be of interest to you, especially as academics. So one of the users says, the fact that the Quran speaks to individuals today after the original revelation is captured in this app. So it's a personal engagement. It's reading the Quran and saying, okay, first of all, I'm interested in what it's saying and what it means. This is generally the domain of tafsir. But then I also want to think about what it means to me. I also want to think about how it affects me. I also want to think about how I respond to it, how I react to it, how it makes me feel. And by sharing that, I can also inspire other people to look more closely, to look at an angle that they hadn't considered before. And something very astute that this person has mentioned is, the reflections people share here is amazing and not necessarily found in the books of tafsir. And this is very true. I, as a person who has to look through these posts and review them, I often find things and I say, wow, that is a really excellent observation. And then I check the books of tafsir and I find, well, that particular observation wasn't made. But then, as long as the point is reasonable and sound, then it stays. So it just shows that there is a lot to be added in terms of talking about things, which especially come from a personal perspective. So this other commenter is now part of our core team, actually. That's so we recruit people from those who love the site. She has said here, it helped me realize the Quran is a living book, which can play an active role in our daily lives. Another benefit I've experienced is that I was able to cut way back on social media usage. It's been a great alternative, and I'm very grateful for that. Alhamdulillah. I will say inshallah for me, because I'm addicted to Twitter, but I'm trying to shift towards this being on Quran reflectingly. So these are just some points from myself as the Chief Content Officer for Quran.Foundation and Head of Quality of Guidance at Quran.com and at QuranReflect.com, I should say. This is just to illustrate a bit about the direction that I'm taking things in terms of content. Because what is the site without content? For Quran.com, it's about the growth and curation of the Quranic text, translations, and commentary. Of course, growing Quranic text, what I mean here actually is things pertaining to the text, including its readings. So increased support for readings, qira'at, different languages. There's already some support, especially for languages, but more that can be done. More tools to explore diversity of meanings. So for example, people want to click on a particular word and follow through to dictionary information to look more in depth about the root meanings of the words. These things to some extent exist on our site, they exist on other sites, but a lot of times if you ask, where did this come from? Which scholar has actually written this dictionary? What is the source of it? You get people to scratch their head and say, I don't know, I found it on the internet. And even when it comes to the tafsirs on the site, for example, you can click through, you can read Tafsir ibn Kathir. You say, where did this come from? I don't know, we found it on the internet. So what I want to get to where I want to get to is that we are sure about everything that we have on the site and we know its origin and its correctness. So more tools to explore diversity of meanings, integration between authoritative and community content reflections. So I've spoken about both those aspects. Already there's a level of integration where on Quran.com, when you're exploring an ayah, you can click on the little speech bubble and that takes you to reflections. So you understand that you've sort of transitioned from the part which feels like the authoritative part to now the community discussion around the ayat. But on the flip side, we also want on Quran Reflect people to be able to find the information or the authoritative content that they need in order to reflect effectively upon the Quran. To be empowered by knowing something about the context, about the revelatory context, about what has been said by the scholars, about the meaning of the words. So it needs to work integration in both directions. The Arabic was not handled well here. Questionized exegesis. This is supposed to say Saljibatu Tafsir. It's a word that I made up, but it's questionizing exegesis to make it possible to search the tafsirs according to the question that comes to your mind. And that means we have to go, the work that we have to do as academics is go to the tafsir and infer what question was this mufassir answering at this point and what question was he answering at that point, and to develop a list of the questions that are being addressed under every ayah. When you produce that, then it allows people to recognize what is going on in the exegesis, and they're able to find the answers to their specific questions. And beyond that, once they see the questions that have been asked, they can ask their own questions. Because this is the very meaning of tafsir. Tafsir is a response to istifsar. This is the theory that I follow. Tafsir in reality is answer to a question about the Quran. So in that case, we need to provide a platform for new questions. And when the questions are there, for there to be new answers. And this is the way that tafsir can continue to live in our world. So I will stop here with thanks for your attention.